So I was gathering research for my next video on why I believe Luffy will defeat Kaido as the sun rises when it all hit me. I started laughing, not just any laugh, but the kind of laugh that you hear from someone, and start to question if they're even sane. Thinking about what I just discovered, I started running back and forth in my house with excitement. I obviously had to research some more to see just how deep this theory was, and the more I looked, the more I realized I may have found something monumental to the One Piece community. Not being able to hide my excitement and thoughts to myself any longer, I went to my roommate's room and told him, I think I have it. I think I have $1 million idea right in my hands. I might have the One Piece.
ワンピースは実在する
As I told him all the details and as he realized what I was telling him and started to process what I just discovered, he started laughing so hard, and in fact I've never seen a bigger or crazier smile on his face. You see, the One Piece and Laugh Tale itself is something so funny yet so insane that it gives you a bone-chilling yet satisfying experience. It is both a legendary tale and a physical pirate treasure itself. I believe I figured out what they both are, and it's been foreshadowed so many times. In fact, I even realized that every single arc gives us a clue to what the treasure really is. Not only every arc, but even the logo of One Piece and even the Straw Hat itself basically tells us what it is. Just thinking about how much in our face it's been all along gives me chills. Wizard of Oz here, and today I'll tell you what the One Piece actually is. Please try to stay with me because I'm going to be going over so many things at a pretty fast speed. So seriously try to pay attention because there are just too many facts that all point to one single piece of information. To start off, I just want to quickly go over what we already know about the One Piece itself. I'll be referencing all these lines or facts later on, so let me briefly tell you all the canon facts on it thus far. First of all, One Piece is the name that the world called the treasure, and wasn't named that by Roger himself. Roger says, and they have no idea when hearing the name of the treasure, hinting that the words One Piece is ironic to what he found. The next most important thing about the One Piece is that when you find it, you not only learn the history, but also the future timeline. You see, Roger, Whitebeard, and Rayleigh already know what will take place in the future. Whitebeard tells Sengoku in his last words that whenever someone finally finds that treasure, the world will be turned upside down. He also says that the world government fears the great war that is coming to the world one day, hinting that he already knows what the future is because Roger told him. We also see that Oda knows the dawn is coming to Wano, and that Joy Boy will be the one to save them. You see, this whole time we thought that the One Piece would tell us information that happened in the Void Century until we reached Wano. Once we reach Wano, we see the One Piece reveals what happens in the future as well as the past history that already happened. What is happening right now in Wano is part of a prophecy made by Odin, which he seems to have learned from Joy Boy. Another thing we know about the One Piece is that you learn what the Will of D is, you learn what the ancient weapons are, that in the past Wano was open to the world, and overall the entire truth of the world. When we see Roger and his crew find the One Piece, they laugh. Not only laugh, but laugh so hard that tears come out of their eyes. Roger laughs as he says this is quite a treasure you've left behind, a tale full of laughs. So apparently the One Piece was funny enough to make Roger want to call the final island Laugh Tale. Now what could be so funny about this tale? What's so funny about celestial dragons enslaving people? What could be so funny about the ancient kingdom losing a war to a bunch of egotistical narcissists that think they're gods? Well, boy is it a funny tale alright, and you'll probably laugh just at the thought of it. You see, Oda has been showing us hints and clues to what the Laugh Tale is, and it's kind of been right in our faces. Something else that Roger says about the One Piece is that he and his crew were too early. Too early for what? Does this mean that the treasure can only be accessed at a certain time or by a certain man? If Roger and his crew found the One Piece, why didn't they tell anyone what it is or try to start a world revolution themselves? Well, there is a reason for all this, and let me just tell you, it is not what you think. There is in fact a reason for only a certain timeline being able to find the One Piece, and it's a crazy one. Another thing that I need to bring up about the One Piece is its Japanese kanji. One Piece in Japanese reads as Hito Tsunagi. This has 3 different meanings, but they all relate to what the One Piece treasure actually is. The first meaning is in One Piece. The second is a rope linking all men, and the third would be one sea at peace. These 3 meanings are important because they all relate to one and one thing only. I'll remind you about this once I reveal what the One Piece is, but still just try to keep these phrases in mind. The last key point that I need to bring up about the One Piece is that it's not just a tale or only knowledge, but also in fact a real treasure. You see, just like everything else in one of these mysteries, the actual physical treasure that Luffy and the Straw Hats will claim has also been foreshadowed through the whole story. When I reveal to you what it is, you're gonna lose your mind, so just please be prepared to get chills and to possibly even scream out of pure hype. This wraps up what we already know about the One Piece, and now let's get into the actual theory itself. Roger and the Roger Pirates learned the truth of the world. They learned about someone named Joy Boy and his funny tales. This one specific line made by Roger is what really made me think about what the One Piece actually really is. At the end of chapter 967, Roger says, "Oh Joy Boy, I wish I'd been born in your time." Why does he wish he could have been born in his time? What's so good about living in a time of a war that the victor is the celestial dragons and specifically most likely Im-sama? What's so good about living during the time of a man that lost? If you ask me, I wouldn't want to be there to see Joy Boy lose or to see the ancient kingdom fall to the ground. That honestly seems like a pretty tragic thing to witness firsthand. If it was tragic, then what did Roger mean by, "I wish I'd been born in your time"? Well, with more recent context, I believe Roger meant, "I wish I'd been born in your time, Joy Boy." And yes, Joy Boy as in Luffy. Roger wishes he'd been born in Luffy's time, not the original Joy Boy. Remember, Luffy is also Joy Boy, and when you find the One Piece, you don't only learn about what happened in the past, but also what happened in the future. That also makes me think, what even is the past? If the future already happened, isn't it basically the past? The future is an even further future's history. The Kozuki clan claims that they are the one that weave history. What does that even mean? Weave history. The definition of weave, oh yeah, not that weave, is to make a complex story from a number of interconnected elements. Each poneglyph weaves pieces of history together with other elements tied into it as well to create the whole history or the one history. The whole history isn't only what happened in the Void Century, but also what will be weaved with the future. One day, the future will be history, and what was the future to them and Roger is actually happening right now. Please try to remember the word weave and that the Kozuki clan weave history, because there's another huge point coming later on with it that is mind-blowing. In this line, he also says how Joy Boy left an unbelievable treasure though, so it seems like he is talking to the Joy Boy from the past. Now, just hear me out because this will be explained more deeply later, but what if in Laugh Tale, when Joy Boy returns, it's not clear that it's a different Joy Boy from the past? What if the name of the character in this Laugh Tale is Joy Boy, he loses the ancient war, then comes back 800 years later to defeat the same people that beat him the previous time? It may be that the only name this individual goes by is Joy Boy, so Roger may think that Joy Boy actually won the war in the long run. So maybe he wishes he could have been in the same era as the return of Joy Boy. In his eyes, maybe Joy Boy left the great treasure, but will also come back to claim what is his and take his treasure back. Some evidence that the people of back then view both the past and present Joy Boy as the same thing is when Zunisha straight up just says that Joy Boy has returned. He doesn't say someone else reminds him of Joy Boy. No, he quote unquote says that the Joy Boy from 800 years ago has finally returned. He claims that this is his first time he's heard the drums of liberation in 800 years. Zunisha was also even on Joy Boy's crew, and he doesn't acknowledge that it's someone else with the model Nika fruit. He says that Joy Boy himself, the one that was his crewmate, has returned. If this doesn't make you question the story of One Piece, then I don't know what will. To expand on this tale of Joy Boy and how I believe Roger wanted to be born in the era of the Joy Boy that wins, is when Roger realizes what the Sea Kings were saying. The Sea Kings say that the two sovereigns should meet again. Roger realizes that what they are saying was apparently what he calls the truth. What is the truth? Wouldn't the truth of the world be the One Piece? This may seem kind of confusing right now, but you'll see where this all leads to later on. Apparently it is true that someone will be born and surpass the Roger Pirates. Roger then says that they were just too early. The impression I get off of this quote is that he wishes he was born in a different era and in a later timeline. Just like how he said he wishes he could have been born in the same era as Joy Boy. Roger was too early to actually see Joy Boy, but he at least was able to see the tale of laughter. He was able to hear about what happens in the future, but actually couldn't see it with his own eyes. With all that being said, we the readers are currently witnessing a part of the history and a part of the One Piece with our own eyes. We are witnessing what was supposed to happen in the future at the time of the Ancient Kingdom and at the time Roger read it. All this future Joy Boy and prophecy stuff makes me think about Fishman Island. In Fishman Island, we see that Robin read an apology letter from Joy Boy to the island itself. King Neptune says that the letter is a addressed to the mermaid princess who lived on Fishman Island at the time. It is an apology for not being able to accomplish a promise that he made with the island. This promise will apparently be fulfilled by another individual in Joy Boy's place, or maybe that individual actually is Joy Boy himself according to the prophecy and Zunisha. This prophecy yet again proves that some things may have already happened even though they're in the future. Now, how did the people of the past already know what would take place 800 years from then? Well, we see in chapter 610 that Madame Shirley can predict the future. She's already predicted things like the war at Marineford, Whitebeard's death, and even the Great Pirate Era. She also predicts that Luffy will destroy Fishman Island, which hasn't happened yet. This most likely has something to do with the promise that Joy Boy made and the prophecy that someone will take his place to fulfill his wish. This all proves that the people of the past were able to see what would take place in the future, and they wrote it down on the last island. Another thing with predicting the future would be future sight. Katakuri's advanced observation haki shows us that he can see something that will happen a few seconds before it already did. By the time it actually happens, to him it is in the past instead of the present. He is literally ahead of his time, kind of like how the ancient people were also ahead of their time. Try to keep in mind that if something already happened in the future, in some way it is history waiting to be occurred. The future is the key to the One Piece, and now we'll talk about how it relates to the Dawn. So now that you know the basis of my theory, let's talk about what the One Piece actually is and what you learn when you reach that point. Before we get to the physical treasure itself, let's talk about something that you learn when you reach the last island. According to Oden, in 20 years there will likely be a massive war that will split the seas themselves. Notice how he wrote this and then right after said in other words, in another 20 years the primary figures of this great war will muscle their way into the New World. So basically, Oden already knew that the primary figures of Luffy, Kid, and Law would go into the New World to cause chaos. Now, we haven't seen the huge war itself yet, but it is coming and these three with their crews will be the primary figures. Notice how right after this, Oden then writes that these are the ones who can strike down Kaido. So, how detailed is the future telling of the One Piece? It seems that it's 100% accurate as of right now, since Oden already knew that Joy Boy would come to Wano in the exact year that he came. He even wanted to open up Wano's borders to be able to welcome his return but failed to do so. Isn't it kind of funny and ironic that even though Wano's borders didn't open up, Joy Boy himself still barged his way through to save his friends? Another thing that we see in this flashback of Oden is that he learns that his wife came searching from 800 years ago for the day that the world is overturned. Now this is interesting because it shows that apparently many people from that era knew about a prophecy that took place, which is the day that the world is flipped. Oden then tells his wife to jump 20 years into the future if she wants to see it. 20 years is a very exact timeline. Like, why not 10 years, or 15, or 30, or 40? He specifically says 20, and that is the exact year that Luffy shows up with Law to Wano. In the final part of Oden's journal or letter, he writes to Toki and says, I want you to use your power, Toki, if I should die, and cast 9 shadows on the night woven of 20 years, and you shall know the brilliance of the dawn. Notice how he specifically used the verb woven. The night woven of 20 years. Is he hinting that the men who weave history wove the prophecy of the night that should take place in 20 years, which is the night that we are currently witnessing for ourselves? Remember before how I said that the Kozuki clan not only weaves the past history, but the whole history. If the future already happened, then it's an even further future's history. They weave all history, not just what they lived through, and this Oden quote is direct evidence of this. The other important part to dissect from this quote is you shall know the brilliance of the dawn. The dawn isn't only the key to everything, but it is everything. Just wait a bit to see what I mean. We also see Toki saying out loud, you are the moon unaware of the dawn. What is the dawn? I mean, it seems to be significant enough for Toki to say on her alleged final words, and for Oden to write to his wife on his final days. Also, what I'm about to tell you, I was gonna put in my video of how I believe Luffy will win when the sun rises. I was originally gonna make a theory on that, and this section of the dawn was gonna be included in it, but I completely went down a giant rabbit hole of possibly figuring out the One Piece. Let me know if you want that theory next, and remember to like and subscribe with notifications on if you want future videos like this one. So going back to Toki and her quote, what could the dawn possibly be? Before we get to what the dawn is, I think it's better to explain what the moon is. More specifically, the moon that is unaware of the dawn itself. I believe the moon is supposed to be interpreted as Wano. She is talking to the whole land of Wano and its people people. Altogether, both land and people, they are the moon. Now you may ask, how can this be? Well, think about it. The whole land of Wano and its people use the main symbol of a crescent moon. We see the people of the rebellion have a crescent moon tattoo on their ankles. The symbol for Wano and its rebellion is the crescent moon in between what looks like swans and a snake. Not only this, but another big hint would be that Wano's theme is called Moon Princess. We see Hiyori play this throughout all of Wano, and that name makes me think that she is in fact the Moon Princess. Either that, or she will one day be the Moon Princess after they defeat Kaido. The moon is Wano, and the princess is Hiyori. Therefore, Oda is trying to say that she is the princess of Wano. Another big hint with Wano being the moon is that it's called Wano. Wano sounds a lot like wane or waning, which is a term used to describe the moon becoming smaller in size, or to simply put it, when it goes from being a full moon to a crescent moon. All these things are really good hints, so I truly think Oda meant to put all these details on purpose. Now that you understand why I believe Wano is the moon, take another look at the line, "You are the moon, unaware of the dawn. May your purpose be fulfilled." Wano and its people are unaware of the dawn which Joy Boy brings, and their purposes may be fulfilled. Wano's purpose could be the opening of their borders after having them closed for such a long time. Oden even says that up until him seeing the One Piece, there was no purpose for Wano's borders to be closed. The moon's or Wano's purpose was to protect the land from outside forces for an 800-year span until Joy Boy returned. The purpose is fulfilled after the people of Wano stayed safe all those years and after Joy Boy himself arrives. Once Luffy wins, he, Yamato, and Momo will open the borders together to fulfill it. Now that we have a better understanding of this cryptic quote, what does the dawn symbolize? Not only in this line, but throughout all of One Piece. We currently see the dawn being brought up throughout the series, and Oda even wanted to name his manga Romance Dawn. So what could the dawn even be or even mean? The dawn itself has begun ever since Luffy started his journey. In fact, the dawn is Luffy's story itself. There are two main definitions of the word dawn, and the first one is the one that most people think of when they hear the word, which is the first appearance of light in the sky before sunrise. This definition symbolizes Luffy's journey as a whole because everywhere he goes, he is figuratively the first appearance of light before the sunrise of their country or of the kingdom. Before he gets to an island, the people are usually sunken in some sort of darkness or evilness, and many times even enslavement. When Luffy shows up, he is the light that frees the people and the light that shows the way to freedom. He is liberation itself and is the dawn that shows up right before the light of liberation frees the people to their ultimate happiness and rightfulness. Everywhere he goes, he brings the dawn. Therefore, his journey that we have been watching this whole time is the dawn itself. The first volume of One Piece is even called Romance Dawn, hinting that since the first chapter, that is what the story is. Oda even called his preview of One Piece Romance Dawn because it truly is such an important factor to the story. In Wano, the people even refer to themselves as receiving a divine punishment, which would be an eternal night that never breaks. This night will be broken by the dawn, or should I say Luffy and his story. Luffy and his story itself is the dawn that Roger and Oden learned about at the One Piece. Okay, so now for the second definition of dawn. The second definition is the beginning of a phenomenon or period of time, especially one considered favorable. This definition proves that the very beginning of Luffy's journey was the dawn of his period of time in the Grand Line. The beginning of the story is the beginning of a certain period of time. That dawn was only for the Grand Line, and there was in fact another one in the New World. Since Luffy and his journey took a 2-year break, the dawn also took a 2-year break as well. Chapter 601 is called Romance Dawn for the New World. This is the return of the dawn, or the second dawn, or simply what it's called, which is the dawn for the New World. This is the dawn that Oden saw in his prophecy that will take place in 20 years. The dawn started back up when Luffy's story started back up, and now the dawn is going to shed its light in Wano before the eternal light of the everlasting day comes. This chapter of 601 ends with Luffy telling Rayleigh he's going to become the king of the pirates, which shows that the dawn is the journey of him becoming it. Once he becomes it, the dawn of the world will have already happened or arrived. This also makes me think, if Oden, Roger, and the Straw Hats learn about this dawn or this tale of Luffy, maybe that's why Luffy wants to be free. free. Now, you may say, what does this have to do with anything? Well, think about it. Why would Luffy want to be the most free? What does that even mean, honestly? I mean, we don't see anyone else throughout the whole story with a dream to be the most free man. Even if they want to become the Pirate King just like Luffy, they don't want to do it for that reason. You see, Luffy might want to be the most free man because of one simple thing. That simple reason for Luffy wanting to be the freest man would be because he isn't.
やっぱ生きてた。もう OK。
That's right, what if Monkey D. Luffy isn't free? At least, not yet. Could he be directly tied to a story of fate, and deep down he knows that luck favors his side for a certain reason? Deep down, maybe it's something within his devil fruit or within his soul, but could he somehow know and feel that he isn't a free man? Although he is known to be a liberator and have the drums of liberation, he himself could be a slave to his own destiny, which already happened in a history that hasn't been told yet. Maybe he needs to find the One Piece, liberate the world, and spread the dawn to finally be released from his spell and truly be free.
なあ、コラさん。俺はやっぱりこの数奇な運命の意味を知りてえ。
Going back to the dawn and how it's the term used for Luffy's story, let's take a quick look at a couple of lines from Bing Sake. In this sea shanty, there are the lyrics "Stormy winds are blowing wide, waves are dancing, evening comes, it's time to sound the drums." I believe this represents the end of the original Joy Boys era. As the evening comes, it's time to sound the drums. The evening represents the sunset, which is the end of the original Joy Boys story or era. As the sun starts to set, it's time to sound the drums. It's time to become Joy Boy or his awakening and fight the celestial dragons. After these lyrics, the next one seems to be about Luffy and the dawn. But steady men and never fear. Tomorrow's skies are always clear. So pound your feet and clap your hands till sunny days return. These lines are directed to all the people of the ancient kingdom and the people that carry their wills 800 years later. Steady men never fear. Tomorrow's skies are always clear. Whoever wrote the song is telling people to not fear anything because tomorrow the skies are always clear. By tomorrow they mean the next era of Joy Boy. Right now the whole world is living under an 800-year night that is slowly coming to an end. The sun god is coming back to bring the day back to the world. The next lines are, so pound your feet and clap your hands till sunny days return. Maybe this means to make the sounds of the drum until the sunny days return. I mean, what else would people in One Piece do by pounding their feet and clapping their hands except sounding the drums of liberation? By now, the whole world has forgotten the beat of liberation since the world government erased it from history, but as Luffy returns to lead the dawn, I bet you will see armies of people stomping and clapping to Luffy's heartbeat in a near future arc. Once Luffy finds the One Piece, it will be the final piece of proof to the world of the whole truth. As Bing Sake said, the sunny days are returning and what has to come before a sunny day does? That's right, the dawn. The dawn is referring to only Luffy's story up until the point he defeats the celestial dragons. After that, the sunny day or sunny noon will last forever. The original Joy Boy story is represented by the dusk or by the sunset, since we know that the sun god died, which led to the Night of the World Noble's rulership. With all this being said, don't get confused with the different Joy Boys eras because I believe it's a key that Luffy's era is the only one that's referred to the dawn. If the dawn is Luffy's journey or story itself, then what is the romance dawn? Since we already have an idea as to what the dawn is, what is the romance? Well, what if I told you that Oda already told us exactly what it is in Skypiea? As the Straw Hats are heading out to sea to be shot up by the Knockup Stream, we see Mont Blanc Cricket say one last thing before heading up to their journey. He says, "No one in history has ever disproved the City of Gold or the Sky Island. People might laugh and call it foolish logic, but it's enough for me. That's what romanticism is all about." So basically to Oda, romanticism is believing in something. Cricket believes that the Sky Island and City of Gold are real, even though he's never seen it with his own eyes. By the way, check out his sun tattoo, you know, Romance Dawn. To prove even more that this has to do with Romance Dawn, let's take a look at the cover page of this chapter that Cricket says this. Notice how the sun is rising. The cover page for the chapter that we learn what romance means shows us the dawn. Another little detail is that we can see two signs of suns on the treehouse. This is Oda telling us us symbolically that romanticism is tied to the dawn. This cover page had details hidden in plain sight with Mont Blanc's most important quote. This quote all ties back to Luffy, as we even see him say romanticism as if he likes the term and thought of it. Luffy's dream of finding the One Piece is romantic because he doesn't know if it's real or not, and he doesn't want to know until he finds it. In Sabaody arc, we even see that Luffy yells at Usopp for even asking if the One Piece is real. He doesn't want to know where it is, what it is, or if it is, because that would ruin the whole romantic idea of believing in something. At the end of Skypiea, we get a reference that ties back to the beginning of the arc story. The last chapter of Skypiea has a narration that says, "The sky that you see when you look up on a whim, is it a dream? Is it real? The country of the Kami above the clouds, 10,000 meters up in the far distant sky. If you listen closely, you can hear the sound of a bell. It's ringing today, it will ring again tomorrow. The sound of the bell echoing through the sky sings the praises of this wandering land." This ties back to the whole idea of romanticism because it's going back to saying how this dreamland is real as long as you believe. It also says how if you listen closely, meaning that if you are intently listening, you can hear the sound of a bell. Only those that believe in the land that exists in the sky can hear it. In the next chapter, we even see Mont Blanc thank his monkey friends for sticking with him and his silly dream. The dream itself is what romanticism represents because it's only a dream and nothing else. He believed the City of Gold was real even though he never actually found it. Just like how Luffy believes the One Piece is real even though he has never found it thus far. Now, so back to the title of Romance Dawn, I believe it simply means believing in the dawn. For generations and generations, people have believed that the dawn will one day come. The people of the past believed in the dawn. Oden did, and so did Toki. Even though they may not see it firsthand, they still believe that the dawn is real and that it'll come through one day. They believe that Luffy and his story will come one day to be the dawn and lead the dawn. This is why Oda wanted to originally title One Piece Romance Dawn, because the Romance Dawn is a story of believing in Luffy's story. Us the readers believe the dawn will come ironically as we read the dawn. Now, I could go deeper into what romanticism is and how it's portrayed throughout One Piece, but this pretty much gives you a clear idea of what the Romance Dawn as a whole means. With all this being said, let's finally discuss what the One Piece actually is. What is the One Piece? What if I told you that Oda has hinted to what it is throughout the whole story and that everything that I've gone over so far is tied to it? Oda's hinted at it so many times and it's probably gonna make you laugh considering how epic yet funny it is. Remember how I said earlier that I believe when Roger said he wished he could have lived in Joy Boy's era that he was referring to Luffy? I also believe he was referring to Luffy because he says that they were just a little too early in finding the treasure. He knows it's not his time or his doing to turn the world upside down, but actually someone else's, who goes by the name of Joy Boy. We also see that everyone who knew what the One Piece was brings up events coming in the future. Oden, just like Roger, can't wait for Joy Boy's return in Wano. Whitebeard tells Sengoku how he already knows someone will find the treasure and that will turn the world upside down. Rayleigh says how destiny goes on and that Luffy has grown into a man even more worthy of the hat. He also says how it might not be a bad thing to live a little longer, showing that he wants to witness something that Luffy will do in the near future. So all four men who knew what the One Piece is don't bring up the past, but instead bring up the future. Not only that, but they all bring up how something is destined to happen to a specific individual that will change the world. Why would they all bring up a future event but not the past? Also, why are they so excited for what's coming in the future? Maybe because the treasure itself isn't just ancient history which will teach you the truth, but the core part of it is something that will happen later on. By the way, I know we've been talking about this sort of thing the whole video, but I thought it would be good to bring these panels back up because I believe they all foreshadowed what the One Piece actually was in these exact lines. So now, to answer the big questions that you've all been waiting for, what is the One Piece that will bring everyone together? What is the One Piece that will turn the world upside down? What is the One Piece that can only be accessed during a certain timeline? What made Roger and his crew laugh? How is the One Piece hinted at in the very logo of the entire series? Overall, what is the One Piece? Well, you see, the One Piece can be one thing and one thing only. The One Piece is Luffy. Luffy is the One Piece that is slowly and surely bringing everyone in the world back together. Luffy is the One Piece that will turn the world upside down. Not only turn it upside down, but he is the light that is leading everyone else to flip it with him. Just like how we find out that Poseidon isn't a form of technology, but instead is a natural force in the world, we will also find out that the One Piece itself isn't a technological weapon, but is a force of nature. Luffy or Joy Boy is the natural force of liberation that liberates everywhere he goes. Also, just that I'd say it before people click off or comment something. Yes, I know Luffy himself isn't the vast treasure that Oden and Roger saw at the One Piece, but trust me, we're getting there. First, let me just explain why Luffy is the One Piece that Roger couldn't use to save the world since it wasn't there. Also, try to remember that just because it's called One Piece doesn't necessarily mean that the treasure itself is only one thing. Okay, going back to how Luffy is the One Piece, so the One Piece is also the thing that many believe will break the Red Line. Well, how do you destroy the Red Line and Mary Joa? I'd assume that you need to use all three ancient weapons plus the One Piece to destroy it. I mean, they do say that they have the power to destroy the world. Luffy and the ancient weapons will literally destroy the old world and make a new one while bringing the dawn. By the end of the series, Luffy will most likely be allied with people that own the ancient weapons or with the ancient weapons themselves. He's already allied with Shirahoshi, Vivi, and Frankie, which leads him to only needing to ally with Uranus. The three ancient weapons will most likely be used to physically destroy the Red Line, while Luffy destroys Mary Joa and the Sunlight Tree Eve. Well, how do you destroy the Sunlight Tree Eve and Mary Joa? Wouldn't you have to destroy Fishman Island? And who did Madame Shirley say would destroy Fishman Island? She said Luffy will. Not just Luffy, but she also said he will do it with his bare hands. If Fishman Island is destroyed, then it'll cause the roots of the Sunlight Tree to be destroyed. Therefore, the Sunlight Tree Eve may die and possibly collapse on Mary Joa. Either that or its magical sun powers will somehow take away some of the powers of the Celestial Dragons. Luffy, Joy Boy, and Nika are the One Piece that will destroy the Red Line and bring the world back together. The world probably won't be exactly how it was in the past, but I actually think Luffy will make an even better version of it. As he breaks Fishman Island by himself, he will also most likely take down the Red Line with it. The Red Line and Pangaea Castle could fall apart as Fishman Island is destroyed. If the Red Line is destroyed, then it'll bring the whole world back together. It will create the All Blue, and it will destroy the Celestial Dragons' homes. All in all, if Luffy is the One Piece, he'll be the one that gathers up the ancient weapons, which leads to the destruction of the Red Line, which leads to the destruction of the Celestial Dragons, which leads to the All Blue, which leads to the world being brought back to One Piece. I can honestly just imagine the scene of Luffy straight up punching Fishman Island, while simultaneously breaking the Red Line with the ancient weapons, with We Are playing in the background. I also believe that the Noah will be used to put every resident of Fishman or Merman in it, while Luffy breaks their home. They need the Noah to fit every one of them with their main belongings, because when Luffy destroys the island, they won't be safe out in the water. The force of Fishman Island's destruction will probably lead to a massive flood and a water phenomenon that can instantly kill anyone without protection. Maybe Luffy will be saved by the Sea Kings, or maybe he'll hop in the Noah right after he does this. This will redeem the promise of the Joy Boy from 800 years ago. Okay, so going back to the three meanings of kanji for One Piece, which is Hito Tsunagi, what is the rope linking all men? Who is the one that will create one sea at peace? And what does in One Piece have to do with Luffy? The rope linking all men is Luffy, which makes him the first definition of Hito Tsunagi. Luffy is also the one that'll create one sea or the All Blue and will put it all to peace. Peace as in peaceful, which shows that he is also the second definition of Hito Tsunagi. The third definition is honestly the best one because it's kinda tricky. What does in One Piece even mean or have to do with Luffy? Well, first off, he could be the one that'll bring the world to being in one piece or as in one kingdom. We know that there was an ancient kingdom back in the day and Luffy will most likely somewhat recreate it in his own style and own way. Maybe when Roger found it, it wasn't in one piece because it wasn't all there. The most important and crucial thing to the treasure wasn't even alive yet, but it'll be at Laugh Tale once Luffy finds it. Luffy being the One Piece treasure also makes sense since Roger couldn't use it back then to flip the world upside down. He couldn't use it for anything because it merely didn't exist yet. Although it's kinda funny that since he couldn't use the One Piece, he instead inspired the One Piece to find the One Piece. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I find that kind of silly yet perfect. Now, remember how I said at the beginning of my video that the One Piece logo hints at what the One Piece is? Well, notice how Luffy is in the logo. In my opinion, this is the most Oda thing to do, and I think when we look back on it, we're gonna just think like, god damn, how is it right in front of our face this whole time? Like, he's basically just toying with us at this point. There's more to this logo which has to do with the original Joy Boy from 800 years ago, so try to keep it in mind because I'll expand more on it later. Just remember the logo because I'll be discussing more on it in a few minutes, but before that I want to discuss what made Roger and his crew laugh. The tale of a monkey named Luffy made Roger and his crew laugh so hard that they started crying. In fact, Luffy or the One Piece itself made them laugh, kind of like how he's been making us laugh for up to 25 years now. I can see the laugh tale ending in such a humorous way with even those who try to hold it in can't help but burst out in tears. I mean, how can you not laugh at the things that this goofball does? Like, Luffy has been making us laugh since day one. I'll never forget the first time I watched One Piece, I started laughing so hard when Luffy called out Alvida. I had almost no impression on what One Piece was. All I knew was that it was a shonen, so I was expecting it to be a little goofy, but man, I didn't expect the humorous vibe to be the driving force of the series. I was instantly hooked by it and never went back from there. So just like Luffy's been making us laugh throughout the entire journey, the whole of the laugh tale is most likely the overall story of Joy Boy, both the one from 800 years ago and the one we are witnessing right now. Joy Boy must have been a funny fellow himself since he had the model Nika fruit as well, but I believe the main part of the laugh tale that made Roger so full of life was most likely the tale of Luffy, whom I believe may have even been pronounced as Laffy in the Kazuki writings, but I'll get more into the tale itself later. It's kind of a funny story that the man who's been searching for the One Piece had it right in his own hands the whole time. Also, did you know that Oda himself foreshadowed Luffy being the One Piece itself at the very beginning of the series? In Orange Town, we continuously see Luffy bring up how the Straw Hat is his treasure. Now, how does this foreshadow Luffy being the One Piece? Well, think about it. Luffy's nickname is Straw Hat or Mugiwara, which could foreshadow Luffy himself being his own treasure by the end of the series. If Mugiwara really is the One Piece, this could possibly go down as Oda's best example of foreshadowing. He's known for his hinting at the puzzle formula, but this is honestly just another level. If this does in fact become true, let's remember to always put the G before Oda. Another possible foreshadow that I've thought about ever since I first saw it is Luffy's chest. X marks the spot on pirate maps, and him having the X shows us that he is in fact the treasure of the One Piece. I thought of this all the way back to when I first watched Fishman Island, but thought it was kind of dumb back then because I didn't have much more evidence to go off of. Now let's talk about the vast treasure that's at Laugh Tale. Now that you've heard all that, you may say, well, that isn't a treasure. The One Piece is supposed to be an actual physical pirate treasure that's on the island itself. Oh, trust me, there is a vast treasure just like Odin said there was, and it's been foreshadowed in the single chapter of 302. When you hear what it is, you're gonna realize how perfect this all is. So this chapter is titled Finale. With this title, I believe it's supposed to foreshadow the finale of One Piece. Before I tell you what the treasure is, let me just tell you that this is the chapter where the Skypieans and Shandians finally make peace and both clans go under the name of one ruler, which is the Sky Knight Ganfall. I believe this foreshadows the end of One Piece because everyone will most likely become peaceful with one another and acknowledge one main ruler or liberator. This could be Luffy, I'm not quite sure yet, but maybe there will be no ruler over the world because that doesn't seem to work. The whole world will probably be in one piece with each other. No more wars, no more fighting, just friendliness and peacefulness with one another. Luffy will just be the liberator that kicks anyone's butt if they try to do something dirty or ruin the peace. So now to how this chapter foreshadows what the One Piece treasure actually is. Later on we see the Straw Hats talking about what they want to buy with all the gold they stole. Now remember, if Luffy himself is the One Piece, then how would the treasure symbolize this? What if at Laugh Tale there's a giant bronze statue of Luffy? Don't believe me? Well, then how come in this chapter title finale, Luffy says he wants a gigantic bronze statue? Yes, this gigantic bronze statue might be the One Piece treasure. If Luffy is the One Piece, then the treasure that he'll find is probably a bronze statue replicating him. I believe it'll probably be a funny looking gigantic statue of a monkey with a straw hat, or basically Luffy. I also think it could be a monkey because in Skypiea we see that the golden bell has something that depicts a monkey with a straw hat on it. If the prophecies made by the Ancient Kingdom are true, then they probably saw a monkey with a straw hat as the return of Joy Boy who will save the world. Notice how earlier in the same chapter we also see Shandians talk to the statue of Kalgurda. This is most likely a direct parallel with what finding the One Piece will be. Notice how the Shandians say to Kalgara that the sacred duty of the Shandians has been fulfilled. They then say that Kalgurda's wish has officially reached his friend. They don't have to make future generations shed blood from now on. They lastly swear to never let the life of Shandora be extinguished. This is a direct parallel with finding the One Piece because once they see the statue and read the true history of the world, they will then fulfill the sacred duty of Joy Boy. There will probably even be a statue of the original Joy Boy standing next to the statue of Luffy. The Straw Hats and Luffy will have accomplished or will be accomplishing the wish of Joy Boy. When they see the statue of a monkey named Luffy and the original Joy Boy, they will never again let the light of the ancient kingdom be extinguished by defeating the world government and by defeating the celestial dragons. Another time we see a statue is at the very end of the same chapter title finale. For some reason, we see the Var statue at the very end. Remember this statue and what it looks like because it's very important to a certain point I'll be making very soon. There's more foreshadowing of a giant statue being the One Piece treasure itself, like in the next chapter when Luffy says it once again. I believe he also says it in Water 7 and of course in Dressrosa. When Luffy first sees the Cairo statue, he notices it and says how it's practically a naked statue of an old warrior. Maybe the statues at the One Piece will also be practically naked, which will be pretty funny. We later see Rebecca telling Luffy how the man of this statue is a mystery and that nobody remembers him. Maybe the statues at the One Piece were also a mystery for Roger and his crew because no one knows who Joy Boy was or will be. He was erased from history just like Kairos. The biggest hint of the One Piece treasure being a statue of Luffy would be that it's in the logo. Could you imagine if the statue that the ancients carved is in the exact pose that Luffy does while in the logo of One Piece? Man, that would be too much honestly. Like, how much more perfect could it get? I'm telling you, people are going to be decoding One Piece hundreds of years after it finishes. Kind of like how we have to read Shakespeare in high school. In the future, students will probably have to learn One Piece because it's just that good and in my opinion, a whole lot better than even Shakespeare. Well, this pretty much wraps up why I believe the One Piece will be a statue of Luffy or Joy Boy, but in my opinion this isn't the only treasure that's there. Oden claims there's a vast amount, which makes me think that it can't just be one thing. It would also be underwhelming if all there was a statue of a naked monkey with a straw hat. Going back to the chapter title finale, let's see what the other Straw Hats wanted to buy with the gold they stole. Usopp says he wants 10 cannons. I can see there being 10 cannons at Laugh Tale, which will make Usopp and Frankie immediately run over to them. The cannons most likely won't be modern warship cannons, but will probably be more along the lines of the ancient kingdom's technology. In Skypiea, we see them use weapons like dials, so maybe the cannons will be monster-sized dials that could do a load of damage to anyone or anything that gets hit by it. I think this will be really cool to see because the dials were one of the coolest weapons in the show and we haven't seen them since the pre-time skip. The next one who says something is Sanji. Sanji says he wants a refrigerator with a lock. Wow, Sanji, a refrigerator with a lock? Really? I mean, how much more specific and in our face can it be? A huge part of the One Piece is Joy Boy himself, the one from the Blank Century. In the Reverie, we see Imu walk into a refrigerator with a lock to look at the giant straw hat. This is perfectly placed with Sanji's quote in this chapter because Sanji, of course, is a cook, and I bet he does want a refrigerator with a lock because Luffy probably eats most of their food when Sanji's not paying attention. This is a perfect example of Goda foreshadowing something that's hidden in plain sight. I also know this hint is meant to be about Joy Boy since in the next chapter, we see that Sanji doesn't want to buy that with the gold anymore. We see that Luffy still wants his bronze statue, that Chopper wants his books, and that Zoro still wants his booze. By the way, I'll get to these two next, but Sanji doesn't want his refrigerator anymore. Even though everyone else wants the same thing as the previous chapter, Sanji changes to wanting a new pot, frying pans, dishes, and a gigantic mousetrap. Also, not important to this, but I thought Sanji liked mice and was even becoming the next Alfredo from Ratatouille. So why does bro want to kill rats and mice? Anyways, back to the main subject. I believe Oda placed a freezer with the lock for what Sanji wants in the chapter title finale because this is a part of the finale of One Piece. The giant straw hat that's inside a giant freezer with a lock most likely belonged to Joy Boy, and that's what the whole Laugh Tale or One Piece is about. Now, what else have we seen inside a giant freezer with the lock within the story of One Piece? If you rewatch the introduction of Oars and of the giant straw hat and Mary Joyce, the scenes are practically the exact same and in parallels. Im walks into a giant freezer that's locked up. Moria walks into a freezer with the giant lock. Im is carrying Luffy's wanted poster. Moria is carrying Luffy's shadow. Now, why would Oda make these scenes direct parallels? Well, because Oars was the original owner of the Straw Hat. Yes, Oars was the Joy Boy. And by the way, I'm not talking about the Oars in Thriller Bark, but instead an even older Oars, Oars the First. Oars Jr.'s Jolly Roger proves that he's actually Oars the Third, which lets me believe that the Oars in Thriller Bark is Oars the Second, and that would make Oars the First Onigashima. Yes, I believe Onigashima, also called Oars the First, is Joy Boy. Another clue would be something that I brought up many times, which is the Var statue. The Var statues that are laid out throughout all of Arbiar Jaya, which is the land that worships the sun god, look exactly like an Oars. Why would the sun god worshippers' land have Oars statues all over the place? Well, because Oars or Onigashima was the one they were actually meant to worship. More quick hints of Oars being Joy Boy is that the Japanese kanji for Oars translates to Odor, which is the sun god in the game Dungeons & Dragons. Another hint of Oars the First being Joy Boy would be that Oars Jr.'s sails have two inverted suns on them, showing the exact signs of both who the sun god was and two sides of the same coin reference. Another possible foreshadow would be that Ace gives Oars a giant straw hat because he never has shade since he's the tallest and closest to the light. I believe this could foreshadow how the original Onigashima Oars got his straw hat. They probably even call him the sun god because he is literally the closest to the sun out of anyone in the land. Another foreshadow would be that Moria puts Luffy's shadow in Oars, hinting that the original Oars acted like Luffy and was Joy Boy. Now with the reveal of the human fruit, we can finally see that Oars could have been able to shrink in a human form since it's a Zoan fruit and then worn the straw hat. Obviously, I know the head at Onigashima is too big to fit the hat, but with the reveal of what the Gum Gum fruit actually is, I believe that he could have definitely worn the straw hat shown in Mary Joyce. I mean, just because this hat isn't the size of Onigashima doesn't mean he couldn't have worn it. The last time I heard, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit, the dude ended up writing a book on how he actually did murder his wife, or at least how he would have done it. With this being said, if the hat doesn't fit, that doesn't mean we should acquit on the idea that Onigashima could have been the owner of it. The biggest and craziest hint that I haven't talked about in any of my videos of Oars being Joy Boy has to do with the One Piece logo. I know we've already gone over it many times, but I promise this one is the best hint yet. Just like how there's a man wearing a straw hat depicted as the letter I, there's also a skull wearing a straw hat within the O. This can symbolize multiple things. First off, this could be a hint that the giant skull in One Piece wore a straw hat back in the day. This could also symbolize that Jolly Rogers originated from this very being, since it's the very symbol of the entire series. If you've seen any of my other videos, you already know that I believe Jolly Rogers came from Onigashima, since in chapter 2, Oda tells us that the term Jolly Roger originated from the devil. Remember that Oars is the devil of the One Piece world. Also notice how in this same page there's a rough depiction of Nika and the sound effect the dum over at Jolly Roger. The dum is a direct reference to the Drums of Liberation, which it seems Oda had planned since the very beginning. There's more to Jolly Rogers coming from Onigashima, which has to do with the Bible and One Piece, but that's for a whole nother discussion for another day. With all this being said, I believe that this skull with a straw hat is meant to symbolize the giant skull of Onigashima, and the Luffy statue is obviously meant to symbolize Luffy himself. Since these two are most likely both Joy Boy, hear this out. Remember how I said multiple times that the word One Piece in Japanese, which sounds like Hito Tsunagi, has 3 different meanings and one of them is the rope linking all men? Well, aren't both Joy Boys the rope that links all men? Once the world finds out of the past history of the Joy Boy that lived 800 years ago, they are supposed to come back together, right? And isn't Luffy already single-handedly being the rope that is linking all men? So the both of them should bring all men back together because of the truth and because Luffy is the current liberator. Well, take one more look at the One Piece logo. Notice how there's both Joy Boys and then a literal rope that links the whole logo together. Can't believe how much in your face it is, can you? I couldn't believe my eyes when I decoded this, and if this all becomes true, then I think it's fair to say Oda is the best at what he does. Like, I honestly don't know how he does it. Both Joy Boys being in the very logo and word One Piece symbolizes that the One Piece treasure is all about them. When you reach Laugh Tale, you learn about the old Joy Boys' tale or legacy and how Luffy continued it 800 years later. The Laugh Tale itself is in fact just a tale of Joy Boy, but I'll get more into what else it is very soon. There's still more treasure that I believe was on the last island, so let's finish that discussion before starting another one. Going back to what the One Piece treasure is and what's on the last island, So now if Onigashima was Joy Boy, then what if he died on the last island and his body is there? We clearly see that there's a giant skull head island, but there's only the skull. We don't know where the rest of his body is or where the skull even came from. This is just a thought and a bit of speculation, but you never know in One Piece. Since Sanji does say the refrigerator line, I was also thinking that maybe at Laugh Tale the rest of Onigashima's body is frozen in time. It could have been frozen by Aokiji's fruit, and we see many hints at giants dying from the cold weather. For example, both Saul and the Oars and Thriller bark were frozen to death. Although, I do for sure think Oars the First somehow died by being frozen. His frozen body being at the last island is a bit more of a stretch. Pun intended. Another big hint to Onigashima being a part of the One Piece could be when Big Mom asks Roger while she's falling to her defeat, "What is the One Piece? Where is it?" And that some of it is in this country, isn't it? This could be Oda foreshadowing that Onigashima is connected or a part of the One Piece. If Onigashima was Joy Boy, then of course his giant skull would be in some way a piece of the One Piece. Another way you could look at this is that what Luffy and his alliance are doing is a part of the One Piece as well. As Oden showed us, this is a part of the prophecy and a part of the information that he learned. In my opinion, it could be both, because I believe the One Piece isn't just one thing. There's honestly so much more I could go over, with Oars being the original Joy Boy, like how Blackbeard, Rocks, and Dragon have Jolly Rogers depicting the ancient giant, but if I went over it all, this video would take another 2 hours. If you're interested in this, let me know if I should remake my older videos on why Oars is Joy Boy. I know the sound quality in those videos is terrible and the overall production is trash, but for now, check those 2 big videos until I make an updated version of it. Also, remember to like and subscribe with notifications turned on if you want to learn more about what the ancient mysteries in One Piece truly are. Going back to the chapter title finale, we also see Chopper say that he wants books, so I think we'll most likely see a few books at Laugh Tale. The Tale of Laughter is sort of a book in itself, but it's probably on a poneglyph or some stone engraving. You can look at the tale itself being a book, but I think there'll actually be physical books made with paper. The literal books that we'll see at Laugh Tale is probably something like Roger's journal, just like how Oden had a logbook on his journey. Maybe Roger also had one and left it there. He did say that he left all his treasure there, so maybe this was a part of it. I think this would be the best case scenario to flesh out Roger's character because it is his thoughts and everything he went through in first person. This would be better than just having some old head tell us how Roger was or how he acted, because they can't tell us what he was actually thinking throughout his entire life. They can only tell us what they saw with their own eyes. I don't see why we wouldn't find out more on Roger's character when the Straw Hats reach Laugh Tale, and a personal logbook of his would be the best way to show us. It was the best way to show us Oden's story, and it would be the same or at least done in a similar way for Roger. I can even see Roger writing a personal letter for Luffy, Joy Boy, and the next Pirate King. Maybe it'll have something like, "So you finally reached the last island, Joy Boy. May you liberate the world and bring the dawn. I have one request for you, which is a dream I can never accomplish. Can you please..." For me. Here, he might ask Luffy to accomplish his own dream for him, which could end up being ironic because Luffy himself also wants to do the same thing. Even if this doesn't happen, whatever Roger writes will be interesting to read for both Luffy and Robin. Obviously, everyone will be interested, but these two will be the most tied to it. Another type of book that could be at Laugh Tale is books on medicine. Chopper also says that he wants to read about other countries' medicine in this panel. Maybe at the One Piece there will be medicine to learn about from a specific other country, the Ancient Kingdom. Another idea could be that maybe at the One Piece, there are the cherry blossoms that he's been looking for. Maybe Roger and Crocus didn't realize that these could heal his disease, since the cherry blossoms only seem to be a myth. Not many have even heard about their existence except a few in Drum Island. It's gonna be so nice to see Chopper finally achieve his dream after everything he went through. The next thing from this chapter and panel is what Zoro says. Zoro needs to only say one word: booze. I'm pretty sure most of you are well aware of booze being at the One Piece, and yes, I believe it most likely is. It's most likely Bing Sake that is there welcoming anyone who finds it. I won't go too deep on this, but if you want more on it, you can check out Arthur's massive theory on it. Lastly on this page, the Straw Hats are all chanting the word gold. There is also someone singing or playing music on Conus's boat right next to them. This makes me think that maybe at Laugh Tale somehow the drums of liberation will be playing, or maybe they'll sing Bing Sake like how Roger did on his journey. I I also believe that since they are chanting gold, there will be a load of pirate gold left at Laugh Tale. I was also thinking, if there's a ton of gold there, then where could it have come from? Well, in case you forgot, Wano's nickname is the Country of Gold. Hundreds of years ago, it was known as this, which puts up the question, where is all the gold? Well, what if Wano was referred to as the Country of Gold before and during the Void Century, but couldn't be known as that after because Joy Boy and the Kozuki clan transported all the gold to the final destination, which is Laugh Tale. If a bunch of gold is at Laugh Tale, wouldn't that best explain the term of vast treasure used by Oden? I mean, what kind of pirate treasure would the One Piece be if it didn't have loads of gold? Can we even really call it a pirate's treasure if there isn't any gold or valuable merch? The panel or scene of seeing the vast treasure is probably going to be amazing to see all the Straw Hats' reactions. I specifically can't wait to see what Nami does when she sees it. She'll probably bathe in it or just lay in it as we've seen her fantasize about before. She'll probably be so happy that she won't even get mad at Sanji or Brook harassing her. So all in all, yes, I believe the One Piece will be a vast treasure with an insane amount of gold, a bronze statue of a monkey that wears a straw hat, Pink Sake, 10 Impact Dial cannons, the reveal of Joy Boy and the importance of the giant refrigerator, books, possibly Roger's journal, and the cherry blossoms that can cure any disease. This is most likely the treasure aspect of the One Piece. One other quick point to lay out in this chapter is right after all this, the Straw Hats fall back down to the Blue Sea. Maybe this is foreshadowing that after the Straw Hats find these treasures, they have to fly back up instead of down. Especially if the One Piece is at Enies Lobby, which it possibly could be. I mean, how many times have we seen the Straw Hats go through crazy lanes just to go to the next island or to survive an insane natural disaster? One last time sure wouldn't hurt, especially if it's for finding and returning from the very destination that has been focused on since the very beginning of the series. There's still one more thing that I believe could be at Laugh Tale, but it isn't in this chapter and it's honestly kind of random. The last possible thing I think could be at Laugh Tale is a transponder snail that has a video recording of what the world used to look like or what the celestial dragons did to obtain their power. The reason I believe this is because Whitebeard says that when someone finds it, the whole world will be flipped and shaken to its core. To get the whole world to realize and believe something, you can't just have a story to tell. I mean, who's gonna believe the most wanted criminals like Luffy and Nico Robin? It would make more sense if the world starts to fight back after they see something dirty that the celestial dragons did, or if they see the ancient kingdom itself. Professor Clover also says that if the people of today found out about the mere existence and idea of this kingdom, it would be a major threat to their government. The name alone could expose so much. Since the kingdom's existence could change the world forever, maybe there was a recording of what it was like or how it was lost to history. I think this would be really interesting and just really important to the story as well. Maybe this could lead to the overall flashback of the original Joy Boy that we know almost nothing about, even up until chapter 1048. I don't see how else we'd get a flashback unless the Laugh Tale is very detailed and explains his whole life story. Overall, this is the treasure aspect to what I believe the One Piece is, but there's still a few more things to go over. Now, there's obviously a tale that has to live up to be so funny for both the Straw Hats and us the reader. In a tale format, I truly believe it'll be comedic, yet at the same time, it'll tell us the history, the future, and the present all at the same time. I have a really good idea as to what the Laugh Tale is and how it'll be played out. Remember how I said earlier that the Dawn or the Romance Dawn is Luffy's story itself? Well, did you know that Luffy's hometown is called Dawn because that is where the dawn begins? Luffy is meant to symbolize the sun as he is the sun god. That's why he's from the east and why his journey is to the west. The sun rises and the dawn begins in the east and it travels towards the west to finally go to the sunset. The sun sets in the west and it rises in the east, just like how Luffy and the dawn begins in the east and moves towards the west, just like Sun Wukong's journey to the west. The story of Sun Wukong is about a monkey traveling to the west to India to find the holy scriptures, just like how Luffy, the Sun Monkey King, is traveling to the west to find the holy scriptures or the whole truth of One Piece. So now with all this being said, what is the Laugh Tale? The Laugh Tale is the dawn or the story of Joy Boy. The whole Laugh Tale is both the dusk and the dawn, but I believe the best part is the dawn. The story could also be about a monkey named Laffy, and I think the monkey bronze statue of Luffy might have the name Laffy engraved on it. Maybe this is why Roger called it Laugh Tale. What if by this he meant it as Laugh's Tale or Laffy's Tale? The people who saw the future in the Void Century may have seen a timeline where the future Joy Boy was being called Luffy, and they mistook it as being Laffy since that's what Joy Boy does. He laughs and makes others laugh. Remember that the Golden Bell of Shandor seems to have a monkey with a straw hat, possibly showing that they depicted him as a monkey in the prophecy. If the Laugh Tale is in fact a tale of Joy Boy, then isn't it literally Laugh's Tale? Think about it. Joy Boy is Nika, and Nika is the sound effect for laughter or smiling. If Nika is the sound effect for laughter, then Laugh Tale can also be called Nika Tale, or should I say Nika's Tale, or Laugh's Tale. There are many wordplay connections you can probably do with Laugh Tale, and I think Oda did all of it on purpose. The Laugh Tale itself is probably the whole story of Joy Boy, told by the original Joy Boy, who tells all the history in a goofy way by naming prominent figures with animal names or some sort of object, which is kind of like what Luffy does. For example, in the tale, Luffy would be a monkey, Zoro would be depicted as a green fox, Nami would be an orange cat, Robin would be a robin bird, Chopper would be a raccoon dog, Marco would be a pineapple, and so on. I can make my own version of how I think Laugh Tale will go, but I'm not going to do that in this video. If you want to know how I think Laugh Tale went, then comment and let me know if that's something you're interested in. Of course, it's going to be funny and it's going to troll the whole story of One Piece, but I think that's somewhat how it's supposed to go. With the Dawn being the name of the era of the return of Joy Boy, I believe that the will of D is the will of the Dawn. The D is passed down from generation to generation until the Dawn arrives. After the Dawn has ended, there will no longer be any reason for the D clan to keep their initial because they will have already defeated the Celestial Dragons. As the Dawn ends, the will of D will also come to an end for a good cause, which is peace. Luffy being the final will of D member and the youngest will of D at the time signifies that he himself leads the Dawn after it's been waiting to come for such a long time. The will of D members are known to directly go against the Celestial Dragons, just like how the Dawn directly goes over the darkness that took over the world. The Dawn brings the light to see out of the darkness, just like how the D clan will bring out the truth out to the world. Notice how we also see members that know what the One Piece is bringing up the Dawn. They don't bring up any other D word because that's most likely the most important one. Now, going back to the true meaning of Romance Dawn. Remember how I said earlier that romance or romanticism in One Piece simply means believing in something? Well, then the true meaning of the term Romance Dawn means believing in the Dawn. This is also why I believe the will of D is the will of the Dawn, because they are the ones who have inherited each other's wills in the belief that the Dawn will come. Just like how Whitebeard said, someday one man will appear bearing the weight of centuries of inherited will on his shoulders to challenge the world. One man shall bring the Dawn because the will of romanticizing or fantasizing about the Dawn shall surely come through one day. One man will carry all the inherited will of the Dawn to bring the Dawn. Also, is it a coincidence that Whitebeard, who is someone that knows what the One Piece is, says this as if he's telling us what the One Piece is, and then goes on to say the One Piece is real?
ワンピースは実在する。
After he saw Ace die, he realized that Ace was not Joy Boy. After this, he realized that the man who carries Ace and Roger's will is in fact real. Overall, he had faith because he for sure knew that the One Piece was real. He knew for sure that Luffy was real and wasn't just some myth made up by Roger and ancient men. He told Blackbeard that he isn't the one that Roger is waiting for, that he isn't the One Piece that Roger was too early for. He simply realized that it was Luffy, the man that was Ace's brother and current holder of the Straw Hat. Whitebeard, Roger, Rayleigh, Ace, Shanks, Kaido, and Dragon knew because each one of them have seen at least a part of the whole history that the Kozuki clan weaved. In fact, even we have already seen some of the history. The whole history has to do with what happens in the future as well as what happened in the past, because the future isn't even further future's history. Overall, the One Piece is the history of Joy Boy. Altogether, it's the history. His story.